Actually, guys, can you give me 1 minute? Can I take that call?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Mike and I are ready to do this podcast with Gerald, and he walks away. Too big, too important for talking to Mike and I. I get it. It's good to be the Gerald, I guess, but
All right, sorry about that.
no problem. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
And I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything.
So continuing, we've mentioned this in recent episodes that Mike and I have decided that we're topical, hard-hitting, get after the issues, all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to continue that today by having a brief conversation about some recent events in the news.
Well, before we do that, Kelly, shouldn't we tell everybody to like and subscribe?
That would be good. Why don't you tell them that, Mike?
Hey, everybody, if you're listening to this, go to whatever platform it is that you're consuming this content from. Click like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, whatever it is that's available to you. Do all of that stuff. And if you're Kristen Ritter, DM me.
So, and every time you like and subscribe, an angel gets its wings. So thank you for that. And the angels thank you for that as well. So recently in the news, there's been some developments. Our poor Mark Zuckerberg, the sad billionaire, has been brought to task when it was made public that he has had meetings with conservative thinking individuals such as Tucker Carlson. And these have been depicted as secretive meetings. I'm not necessarily sure they're secretive, but regardless, they weren't really well known until recently. And this has prompted on Twitter, interestingly enough, quite a bit of interest for a trending hashtag called Delete Facebook. And this idea of everybody saying, hey, if he's going to talk to these people, we need to delete Facebook. And then there's these hipsters coming out like, oh, I deleted it 5 years ago, and now Facebook's full of old people, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought it would be fun. I'd be very interested in your cut. I've got some thoughts on this, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting for us to talk about delete Facebook. Do you intend to delete your Facebook account? And just some of the rationale behind it and how kind of as a society it seems like polarization is the only way we go these days, which is fascinating. But so first of all, have you been tuned into any of this dynamic at all, Mike?
In a vague, broad strokes sense. So what specifically were these meetings about?
These were just to meet to get their input around communications and their thoughts on the platform and just kind of hear a point of view that's out there. So it wasn't let's build conservative Facebook or whatever. At least that's not my sense. I wasn't at any of these meetings. I think it was more just these are Tucker's one person himself. He's very active in the media. There were a number of other conservative leaders that were mentioned as well. Tended to be folks that might be a little more polarizing like Tucker is. But it was just mostly kind of getting people's cut on, hey, how are things going? What do you think would be helpful for public discourse on such matters, and just what's the role of a social platform regarding content and all of that. So it was the mere fact that he was willing to meet with these people that has kind of triggered some folks to say, that's it, it's gone. So I have a couple points of view that I want to share on this. This was a topic I put on the table for Mike, and he was nice enough to say, yeah, let's do it. But I want to kind of start with the fundamental premise to say, and it's this whole fake news, propaganda on Twitter, who's using it, or propaganda on Facebook, and people being convinced. To me, if you are an individual that is going to form your position on politicians and policies and any decisions on information you receive from a Facebook ad or post, I'm not highly confident that you're sourcing the information you need for insight as ideally as you could. And simply by getting that person off of Facebook is not going to make them any more intellectually ready to process information and make a good decision, because it's let the buyer, we're in a world of let the buyer beware on any information you see. And if you can say, well, I saw it here, so it must be true. Those are the folks that the river doesn't run really deep on. So I'm sure that's going to make me popular with a lot of folks, but I didn't know if you want to just walk away from that commentary, Mike, or whether you want to offer any of your point of view.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
See, it was a short show.
Yeah.
So, and I've always said this. I'm going to kind of bring this back to like music and entertainment stuff in general. I've always said, and we do it with Pagan. Unless you know us personally, you don't know what our political views are. It's fair to say we're not ultra conservative. we're liberal in certain areas like marijuana and pornography, but you really don't know what our political views are because we don't put that into our art that we put out. And we, Kelly and I have discussed when we talked about some more problematic artists, like when we did the Burzum review, we can disagree with what he does as a person, but none of that's actually in Burzum's music or any of their output. None of his politics make their way into those lyrics. So it becomes a situation where I think for a long time prior to social media, there was all of these people, whether it was even politicians, but artists, celebrities, any kind of personality that you consumed content from before we became the content machine of the internet and social media pushing them. You really didn't know what their actual belief system was. You only knew what they put out there. And typically that was something that was being filtered through agents, managers, PR firms, record companies if they're a band, studios if they're actors. So you weren't getting the unfiltered version of them. And I'm not picking on him because I'm actually a fan of him as an actor, but so I'm going to use Tom Cruise as an example. Tom Cruise is crazy, and we all know that now, but you didn't know that for a long time. Like, he didn't just get crazy before he started jumping up and down on people's couches. Like, he's been involved in the alien cult thing for a long time and doing weird stuff on movie sets and all, but like he had a team of people that were a buffer between what you heard and saw of him and the crazy guy jumping up and down on the couch. But with the rise of social media, you have, for whatever that public figure is, a more direct link to them. We have a president right now who isn't Alice Cooper for some reason, despite the fact that Kelly and I distinctly told you to vote for Alice Cooper, who isn't Alice Cooper.
Yeah. How's that worked out for you, world? that you did not listen to Mike and I.
But like, we have a president who, his social media posts are more talked about, and this is not a defense or condemnation of him, because again, you don't know what I think about politics. I mean, Kelly does, but you as a listener, you don't know what I think about politics, other than, I think I've made it clear that I'm just not a big supporter of our current system as a whole, not just the current administration. I'm not a big fan of our current system as a whole, but I feel like 99% of the rhetoric about our current president isn't policy based, it's Twitter based and the things that he says on social media. Now, as recently as a couple of years ago, it would be unfathomable to think that a president might even have social media, let alone be the person who's actually running that on a day-to-day basis. As of a few years ago, like most bands, going back to, pre-Facebook and the MySpace days, most bands on there didn't run their own MySpace pages. I remember signing a record deal where we were no longer, for a period of time, in charge of our own MySpace page. But the president can tweet anything he wants in the middle of the night. There seems to be no filter, no one standing by going, hey, let me just, proofread that real quick before you send that out. So I think that we live in a society where we're hyper aware of the thoughts and machinations of people in a way that we never were. So, if people are offended that somebody's taking meetings with someone, I assure you there are things going on in public figures' lives, their beliefs, the people that they affiliate themselves with, that you would 100% disagree with. You just don't know about it. And I think that as technology and social media become more and more prevalent in the way that we interact with people and the way that we view people, as that buffer is eroded, you're going to find out all these things that you don't like. And you have to decide if you're using a platform that this person created. You're not friends with him. Like, I know that back in the MySpace days, your first friend on MySpace was Tom from MySpace. That guy's not your friend. I've never met him. We've never hung out. We've never talked. I don't know Mark Zuckerberg. I feel like it's incredibly unlikely I'll ever meet him. So like, I don't know him. I'm not a giant fan of his platform to begin with. I'm more of an Instagram user, which is now owned by Facebook, but it was not initially. I made the jump to Facebook just because we needed a social media presence for the band and MySpace was starting to go under. So that's why we initially made the jump. And to be honest, for anybody who doesn't know me on Facebook, a while back, and it wasn't just me, it was Christian as well, both really cleaned out a lot of our Facebook. A lot of the people who we didn't know in real life are no longer a part of the Facebook community that we interact with, and we don't really post much there. The things that you see on Facebook are typically reposts from my other social media. So I don't personally use Facebook. One of the things I'll say about the targeted advertising is that's not just Facebook. I think this is one of those situations where, and this is where I'm going to make people mad, like Kelly already has, people are dumb and were maybe not as aware that they were being targeted by advertisers before, but you have been for a long time. And I think that with Facebook, it's just become so blatant. It reminds me of an election that happened where Alice Cooper didn't win. And I know firsthand that there are a number of people who do not understand how our presidential elections work. They think you vote, those votes are tallied, and who gets the most votes becomes president. They're not aware of the Electoral College, have no understanding of how that system works. But part of how that's been able to happen for so long is at least there was the illusion of of democracy. Whereas I feel like more recently, I remember being in my office when the Trump election was happening, and they were calling states before I went to lunch that day, let alone when the polls close at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So I feel like there's not even pretending anymore in politics to care about what the consensus opinion on things is. So what I think has happened with Facebook from my perspective is Facebook took what all these other sites were already doing and took away any sense of mystery to it. They're like, hey, you were just talking about this, buy this. Or you like politics, vote for this person. Or you like, I just think there's no more finesse to it like there was before. But you as in everyone listening to this has been targeted by advertising for as long as you've been using the internet. So don't think this hasn't been happening to you before. It's just that Facebook has been more brazen, I guess is the right word, than most other platforms have been. Would you agree with that, Kelly?
I'd say they have been slightly more brazen, but not much. And a really good example. And so for those of you who don't know, I'm on the fringes of the dark arts of marketing in my regular employment. So I'm not unfamiliar with some of these ideas of targeting.
Please add on the fringes of the dark arts to all of your social media.
Should be my new description. But then when you experience the results of that personally, we have, as you've heard on past Squat Cobblers, have a couple cats and have a nice little cat water dish that's got a fountain in it to keep the water moving, could keep the cats happy because you got to keep the cats happy. And there's a filter in the bottom of it, and we're due. Got to get that filter switched out. So I did, I think, one Google search on a particular filter type. And on every single social media platform I go to, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm deluged with advertisements for this filter. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I know. I was looking for it. I'm good. But it's there. It is brazen. It is pretty transparent. You will see the results of your search showing up as ads in Facebook and Instagram immediately. And this gets into, so I think it was good for you to go down the election route in case I didn't offend everybody to begin with some of the things.
I had to get in there.
You got a good swath in there, so we got more, but let's double down. Let's go a little bit further here. So for the rocket scientists that are so hell bent on, that's it, I'm cool, I'm gonna delete my Facebook. Then you point out, so they own Instagram. Well, I'm not going to get off of that. It's like, well, if the great Satan owns both of them, Shouldn't perhaps you get rid of your Instagram? Well, yeah, but who's going to see my dinner if I don't have Instagram? So I just kind of questioned the wisdom and the depth of thought on this process, and I just also come back to shame on you. If someone's going to people throw junk at you, you don't have to just accept it whole hog. You need to look at things collectively. I think we've established a couple things. I'm really going all in today, Mike. I think we've established a couple things already.
I completely lost my
bad word.
Who's going to see my dinner?
But, so a couple things we've established, I think, over the history of Squat Cobblers. I'm not a big fan of people. And then over time, I really do think actors should watch their carbs. So these are my two fundamentals that I kind of ground everything in. And
I would also like to throw in there, what's up, Kristen Ritter?
That's right. Big Kristen Ritter fan, though. Major carb watcher. I like Facebook for the purpose it serves me, which is I need to at least fake it. And so when I'm not going to keep track of when somebody's birthday is, but it's nice enough to tell me, so I can type in happy birthday, and my development of a relationship is done. And it's a good thing to it's a nice thing to kind of do on that. And occasionally see from my less technology oriented family members photos of vacations and stuff like that. That's its purpose for me. It serves no other purpose for that. This is not where I'm going to plumb the depths for intellectual discourse on any topic. Keep it, delete it, whatever you want to. It should ultimately be innocuous. It's just interesting how polarized we get, but only partially polarized, because again, there are pictures of desserts that need to be made public, and it's an inalienable right in the Constitution. So people are going to stick with that as well.
So you just hit on something that came up on Facebook this week. My good friend Tony Brownser and I were talking through comments on Facebook. I got tagged in a post. So have you seen the new Joker movie?
I have not yet. I'm looking forward to it, but I haven't seen it yet.
I've not seen it yet either. I have a road trip coming up, so maybe on some off time during that when I'm not watching Downton Abbey.
That's going to be a nice compare and contrast for you.
So apparently, though, there's been on social media, and I've seen this, there's been quite an uproar. I guess people were disappointed that there wasn't mass outbreaks of violence at screenings like everyone has been preparing for. So the new controversy surrounding it is that apparently in a scene, the beloved classic Rock and Roll Part 2 by Gary Glitter is used in a scene. And people are in an uproar that a multiple convicted pedophile has a song in this movie. So I had to turn down Thriller on the radio long enough to respond to this post and remind people that Rock and Roll Part 2 was and still to a large degree is a part of every single mainstream sporting event ever. And while less now after his 93rd conviction, it was the whole time I was growing up, during which point he had already been convicted of sex crimes against children. Convicted, not accused, convicted. And again, with the proliferation of social media, I think now more people are aware of that, so they've scaled it back slightly. And I'm not saying that makes it okay to support his work or to feature him in something. That's not a decision I would have made, but it's not my movie. But am I going to not go and see it now because of that? Again, we're in Thriller season. I feel like we're picking and choosing, and this is something we touched on in I touched on in the Burzum review. I feel like we're picking and choosing what we're getting offended about. This has become we're a polarized society, but it's very a la carte. People get mad about one thing but are accepting of another. They hate Facebook, but they need to show people pictures of their dinner, as Kelly pointed out. We live in a society where people like to pick and choose the things that they find offensive.
Yeah, it's targeted outrage.
Yeah, it is. That is excellent. Yeah, we have targeted outrage to match targeted ads, and you really see that. So Tony brought up something that we might as well just go all in, and I'm going to pull in a little bit of religion right now.
I hope you're all enjoying the final episode of Squat Cobbler.
Hey, like and subscribe. So I'm going to bring in religion. So Tony,
oh, super.
And yeah, so Tony brought up, so I and Tony to a large degree are products of, and I don't know his whole history, but I am largely a product of Catholic school. So I went to, or religious school, I should say. I went to Baptist school and then many, many Catholic schools after that. So I don't know if you heard, but there has been some scandals related to Catholic school system as of late.
I'm familiar.
Okay. So one of the biggest that when this most recent round was coming out involved one of my high schools, because I much like I tour now, made an earlier tour of all of the schools in my city. Being the star people that I was, made a tour of all the schools in the city. And one of my high schools, as Tony pointed out, Tony and I actually know each other from high school. And one of the high schools that I attended and he attended as well, one of the larger scale scandals came from that school. And it was amazing, the breadth of the scandal, because it started with misappropriation of funds for the school that turned into not just embezzlement, but what seems to me to be sort of money laundering, which led to finding out about a drug ring, which was all to power a pedophilia ring. So it was big. It was a big deal. People went to prison. Many, many careers were ended. Many, many families were destroyed when they found out what had been going on with other members of their family and things like that. It was a really terrible thing for the entire community. That school is still open. They just shuffled some people around. A couple people went to prison, but they just shuffled some people around, and that school is still thriving, as Tony pointed out in that post. Again, shouldn't we be a little bit more upset about that?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch any of that.
Also, let me add to that. People died as a result of that. Just to add something else to it. There were deaths involved in it as well. So it's the a la carte, some of the people who were up in arms about this movie are still supporters of that school. So it seems weird to be offended by one and not the other. So it all kind of ties back into what Kelly was saying, because he's the one who talked us down this controversial road that I tried to avoid.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing pedophilia in at this point. That was great.
Pedophilia and death.
A little bit of that. So I do think maybe we need to clarify where Mike and I are coming on this, just so folks are clear, because we're certainly not making light of many of the horrors and terrible circumstances have happened where there should be accountability. But I think what we are pointing at is that sometimes the outrage depicted by some, and since we're already kind of in the death spiral on this.
Hey,
bad word.
Say whatever you want.
Let's go back to Trump a little bit more, because that'll cheer everybody up. It is so. Also recently, very recently, this video has come out that I am 99% convinced that he's got no fingerprints on, but people related, not directly related, but associated with him were involved with it. Took some footage from the Kingsman where he guns down a bunch of people in a church, put various news agency logos over the heads of those people, had some very weakly done deep fake stuff done about the Trump character stabbing John McCain in the neck, shooting Barack Obama, just horrific, wrong things. And the same people that are kind of going like, it was a parody and a meme and get over it, are the same people that lost their minds when Kathy Griffin held up a rubber head of Trump that was bloodied up. And I guess my point on all of this is, so first of all, spoiler alert, both of those behaviors are ridiculous and bad and stupid to do either, but just to kind of watch how people polarize and go through and kind of go, well, I'm okay with that, but so long as it's my people or my agenda or whatever that is being supported, but totally kind of rail against the other one. That's the part I did that. At least what I'm suggesting is a certain level of moral consistency to kind of say, if it's wrong to do that for someone that you do not like politically, it's also wrong for someone you like politically to do it as well. So, again, I'm sure we're making tons of friends today.
No, and I totally agree with what Kelly's saying. That's an excellent example too. And it ties back into my rant on pedophilia, which was that something
we're not going to do any callbacks on that.
Which ties back into our pedophilia discussion. Yeah. There's selective outrage that's happening right now. And I am fine with people being offended and being outraged. If you're upset that a song is in a movie or that somebody tweeted something, it's okay. It's okay to not like what someone says. That's fine. But then you have to be consistent across the board. You can't be mad at somebody for saying something just because you don't like them and then be okay with it when someone else says it. The Kathy Griffin thing is a great example. I have not seen this video that you're talking about. Bizarrely, I kind of want to now.
Yeah, it's that kind of car wreck mentality of kind of yeah. It's just it's disappointing, but yeah, I read about it on Facebook. So
I'm sure now that we're talking about it, I'm pretty sure I have Facebook open somewhere. I'm sure it'll be on my feed when I go on now. But like, you know, to use that as an example, like there are people who are like, that's entertainment, I'm sure. And then there's, you know, those same people were upset about the Kathy Griffin thing. And that goes, you know, the same thing about the Joker movie. I would never use a Gary Glitter song in a movie because I'm aware that that's convicted pedophile. But I'm not going to freak out about it and still be supportive of an institution that supports child abuse. That seems counterproductive to be mad at one and not the other. So, and I think that's what happens. And that's not a defense of Kathy Griffin either. That's stupid, as Kelly said, when she did. I do things sometimes, especially not so much with the band, but I don't know if you've ever heard, but I've worked on some movies, Kelly. Some of them were not universally beloved.
Yes, I am familiar.
You may have seen a review or two that was unkind or not as understanding as they could have been about the content of the film. That's okay, because I made an adult decision going into it that I understood there are some people who aren't going to get this, and this is not for everyone. And that's okay. Just like it's okay to be mad at me about it if you see it and you were offended by it. That's okay. It's not okay, though, for you to be mad at Kathy Griffin, but okay with whatever the Trump thing is. Or to do what Kathy Griffin did, and then subsequently after her, I would say somebody like Roseanne on the other side, who I know going into doing something like that there's going to be people who are going to be mad about it. I accept that and internalize that because I'm an adult. So I can make that decision to speak for myself and also accept the consequences of that. You can't go that far and then act like you had no idea there would be consequences for that, because that's dishonest.
Yeah, and how about we all try respecting each other a little bit, understanding that when somebody disagrees with you, that's okay. That doesn't make them the devil initially.
What?
And defend your positions on things, but ultimately I think we're all in this together. So the more we can kind of figure out how to kind of get after the really bad stuff and get rid of it, regardless of politics, religion, or whatever, that would be better. Well, I think this has gone well. I'm sure there's going to be no consequence to this type.
Anything you want to add about reproductive rights?
Yeah, I think we'll save that for a future show. I do think, stay tuned, squaddies. Make sure you've hit that like and subscribe, because we're probably not too far away from the very special Squad Cobbler where Mike and Kelly discuss the Electoral College. So this will be a real toe tapper for you a little bit later. I think enough damage has been done at this point, unless you want to wing out one more.
This is the time to point out this was not my topic.
This was not Mike's topic. Yeah, shockingly enough, this was not Mike's topic. I still, I'm gonna own this one, because I just really want us to start talking about how some of this stuff's playing out, because it's crazy town, and we got to find ways to continue to get our different points of view across. It doesn't result in this just kind of polarizing hate and ear shutdown and all that. Not justify, and in no way when I say that is like, there are certain positions that are untenable, and there are certain things that are just unacceptable, but let's work together to kind of eradicate those. So what an interesting politically oriented Squad Cobbler we did tonight.
Can we just title it "Make Squad Cobbler Great Again"?
Yeah, I guess. Really at this point, why not? So
couldn't be worse.
What could possibly go wrong? I guess the one thing I feel kind of good about is I think we've provided enough material to make anyone, regardless of what their persuasion is, we did something to tick somebody off. We've covered, we have touched every base here. There's nobody that's going to get done listening to go like, yeah, these guys are right on point.
Dead on. Agree with everything they just said.
So we got
politics, religion, social media.
Yep. So this will be fun. we'll have to see how this plays out. We would, although, as we've talked about, perhaps Facebook isn't the greatest feeder to your intellect and insight on that. Another mildly dangerous place for discourse is YouTube comments. However, I really really would like to hear somewhat focused, coherent commentary. If you really strongly disagree with us on this, love to hear that. If you agree with some of the points,
especially from the bad word Gearbeard guy.
Yeah, he is. We have served up gold to him. We haven't heard from him in a while, though. I think he's moved on, but we'll see.
Can we just send him a link directly?
Yeah, I probably could. So.
Just in the subject, right? I promise you'll have something to say.
Well, I think I'm done. Do you have anything to wrap us up, Mike? Otherwise, we're going to shut this down.
No, I just, send us your thoughts and prayers, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.